Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome to this thing that I do called Thor's Entertainment. I am Thor, and today I'm going into the Kombat League again for Mortal Kombat 1 to do a Fatal Friday video. And that is the series I do where I take the main roster and cameo fighters for Mortal Kombat 1 and I try to earn their unique finishers such as Fatalities and Brutalities. This week we are going to see the return of Nitara and the cameo Subzero. And what I am trying to get to is a pretty simple one. It's going to be Nitara's default fatality, Vaeternus KomBAT. That is the very first fatality that you get with Nitara, and you have it from the very start as soon as you pick up the character. And like with the other Nitara videos, I am trying to get the taste of blood brutality with her in these videos because, well, I had not earned it at the time, and it is a very hard brutality to get, so you're going to see me going for that in the background at times, even though it ends up not being what I highlight in this video. But it is mention worthy because it actually does have an impact, or at least I think it has an impact, on how the fight ends against the people I fight in the Kombat League. And this week we're going to start off against an Omni-Man user, and that Omni-Man is going to be paired up with a Frost cameo. And one thing I did not notice until I started going back through this footage for the Nitara gameplay, so whenever I was using Nitara to try and get her finishers, I ended up facing Omni-Man more than any other character in the game. And I completely forgot just how frequent it was. Like, I think the majority of my Nitara gameplay comes against people using Omni-Man. Besides that, off the top of my head, I think somebody used Havoc, and then Johnny Cage, and in my last video, I fought somebody using Reiko. So yeah, there's like 3 people that come to mind that were not using Omni-Man whenever I was using Nitara. Pretty much every single other fight that I participated in ended up being against Omni-Man, and it's just a really weird statistic. Well, maybe not so weird. After all, this was around the time he was first released, so maybe it's only weird to me in hindsight. At the time, it probably made perfect sense. So I mentioned earlier that I was trying to go for the taste of blood brutality for Nitara before I ultimately just decided to go for her fatality instead. And the reason that is important, or at least one of the reasons, is because whenever I got Omni-Man this close to death, rather than just finishing the fight, which I could have done a variety of different ways at this point, I elected to just jump around and not fight at all and just try to get some distance so I could try and do that brutality. So rather than fight, I was just evading and trying to avoid Omni-Man for about 20 seconds straight. Eventually that did come to an end though, and I realized I was not going to get that brutality. I just went ahead and ended the match, and well, that's when I decided to bust out the fatality.
Fatality! Nitara wins.
So yeah, I ended up wasting a lot of time because I was trying to get that brutality, and that had another impact on this fight. And that was, well, I think my opponent was tired of it and decided to themselves they were not going to stick around for my nonsense, especially if I was going to waste 20 seconds or more at a time just avoiding them. So rather than stick around to try and do a rematch and try to claw their way back in this set, my opponent just elects to leave. So it is one and done, and I found myself in this weird little situation where I couldn't just end the video here. The video would only be like 3 minutes long. So I decided to myself, I'll go ahead and just go back into the Kombat League and try to earn this fatality one more time, and either that next video would be long enough to stand on its own, or I could just combine the two. So yeah, let's go ahead and go to the next match of this Kombat League nonsense. So what I did back there was a little bit uncharacteristic for me. Normally I do not go for the fatality until I had won the entire set for a, well, Kombat League set. But in this case, I went ahead and did the fatality after one victory as opposed to trying to win the entire set. And the reason for that kind of goes back to my struggles with Nitara. It seemed like one of 2 things would happen pretty regularly. At least early on when I was first learning to use her, which this was around that time. I would either struggle to get wins with her, and I didn't want to risk the chance of me going through a long losing streak and not being able to do the fatality again. And the other side of that is whenever I did have a little bit of a winning streak going on with Nitara, so I felt comfortable trying to go for the fatality after winning an entire set, well, what I found was people were, well, they were quitting on the matches. I think that also has a lot to do with me wasting time trying to go for the brutality in addition to the fatality, just to try and capitalize on whatever opportunities might present themselves for that brutality. But people didn't like me wasting time, so they were bailing out. Or at least that's what I assume it was, because it was happening kind of regularly. At least it was at the very end of Season 1 and then going into Season 2. So since I was having trouble keeping consistent matches going where I was winning, I went ahead and just took the opportunity to get a fatality in so I have that recording, and sure enough that person bailed out as well. So yeah, I was having some bad luck with people quitting, and I wasn't getting the opportunity to do the fatalities based on how I normally like to do things, so I went for it a little bit early and, well, we got it recorded. And then we proceeded on to the next match, which is happening right now in the background, and wouldn't you know it, we got another Omni-Man opponent. Yeah, like I said, I fought a bunch of people using Omni-Man when I was using Nitara. I actually had to go back and check to see if somehow I happened to match with the same guy again, but no, this person's completely different. And I'm not exactly sure what was going on with these matches whenever I fought against the old Omni-Man and this new Omni-Man, but even when I was not going for the brutality, it seemed like every single round was going down to about 30 seconds or so there was a pretty good amount of time being spent on every single round. And the very first round of this new Omni-Man matchup was pretty favorable for me. I don't think I even dipped below 50% health, so things were going pretty smoothly. And even here, I've already taken my opponent below 50% health, and I have not taken nearly any hits throughout this entire time in the second round, so it looked like I was going to get another easy win. And in the back of my head, I was going to go ahead and go for the brutality, or at least try to earn it again. So expect a little bit of wasted time doing that. But I knew that if I did end up winning this match, I was going to go ahead and go for the fatality immediately again because, well, I had literally just had someone quit on me in the last match, and I already had some other experiences like that, so I didn't want to waste the opportunity to try and get that fatality recorded again. And then I thought to myself, if the match continues and we just go on to the next match of the set, I wouldn't go for the fatality anymore because I would have already done it once and there's no point. So I'd just try to get everything wrapped up in this set as quickly as I could if that ended up being the case. And it was about here that I realized the clock was almost out and my health was getting a little bit too low to continue fishing for the brutality, and that I was just going to go ahead and need to end everything and we'll just go for the fatality instead.
Fatality. Nitara wins.
And there it is for a second consecutive time, the Vaeternus KomBAT Fatality for Nitara. So I hope you enjoyed that, since we got to do a little bit of a double feature in this episode, and going ahead and going for the fatality may have proven wise in this scenario, because sure enough, for the second consecutive match in a row, after one match, my opponent bails and decides they are not going to stick around to try completing the entire set. So yeah, 2 back-to-back one-and-dones for my Kombat League sets. I don't know if that's happened in any of these recordings before, but I thought that was kind of wild, and I was just having really weird luck keeping a consistent fight going. But you never know what the other person has going on their side of that television screen, so whatever it was, I hope everything turned out alright. But yeah, thank you to my anonymous opponents from the Kombat League for participating in these matches. That is going to be it for this Fatal Friday video. Since I went ahead and got those fatalities, I'll go ahead and show off one of them one more time at the very end of this outro. That way we get to enjoy it one more time before parting ways. But yeah, that is going to be it. If you enjoyed what you saw, feel free to check out what other stuff I have on the Thor's Entertainment channel. I do have other Fatal Friday videos like this, and I also have playthroughs of the story modes for other Mortal Kombat games. But yeah, that about wraps it up. Take care, and I will see you next time.
Fatality. Nitara wins.